What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Draft Sharks YouTube channel. It's your old friend Herms on Twitter at HermsNFL, and it is officially rookie draft season for you Dynasty managers out there. And in today's video, we are going to be going over some day 3 picks from the 2023 NFL draft that you should consider as deep Dynasty stashes at the running back position. This class was touted as a pretty deep class for running backs, and unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of guys land in super good spots or get the requisite draft capital that maybe we were hoping for. But there are still a few players that went a little bit later that you might be able to snag in the 3rd round of your rookie draft, or if you don't have a league that drafts into the 4th round or so, could be picked up off of waivers after the fact. So keep these names in mind once again as dynasty stashes at the running back position from the 2023 NFL draft class. If you want to see where we have some of these guys ranked, you can go over to the Draft Shark website and check out our Dynasty rookie rankings. We got all that updated for you, but let's talk about these players, starting first with Deuce Vaughn going to the Dallas Cowboys in the 6th round. He's a smaller guy. We have talked about him on the main podcast before. 5'6", not a very big dude, but he achieved a lot of really good production while playing at Kansas State over the last couple seasons. Also a guy that caught 40 or more receptions in each of his last 2 years in college, and we know that he can also do a little bit on special teams as well. I think everybody has seen that little heartwarming moment where his father, who works for the Dallas Cowboys, called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, do you want to come to work with me next week?" And just such a great moment. But talking just purely from fantasy football terms, it's rare for running backs this size to do anything at the next level, but he should be able to stick around and have a roster spot because of his special teams contributions. And when we really think about the long-term future of this Cowboys backfield, what do we have to count on? Tony Pollard was franchise tagged. That guarantees he's only around for 2023. Ezekiel Elliott got released. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. And then much beyond that, Ronald Jones signed a 1-year deal. I mean, come on, folks. There's nothing really there. Deuce Vaughn, if he sticks around and can, really produce in the limited role that he has, showed the ability to be a pass catcher in college, showed the ability to shoulder a massive workload at Kansas State, and it's not inconceivable for him to have some sort of role in the Dallas Cowboys offense by 2024. So if you just want to tuck him away on your taxi squad, see what happens, I think he would be a ton of fun. But if we're just going to flip it up on its head and transition into a much larger player, let's talk about Chris Rodriguez, over 220 pounds. This running back from Kentucky is an absolute tank. And even though he only played in, I think, 8 or 9 games last year, he totaled 904 rushing yards and was absolutely killer behind a Kentucky offensive line that got progressively worse in 2022. His season that he had in 2021 was much better. 225 carries, almost 1,400 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns. This guy is an absolute tank. And when we think about what the Commanders have on their roster right now, Chris Rodriguez is built much more in the archetype of Brian Robinson, that kind of big-bodied, bruiser between the tackles, doing that sort of role. And Antonio Gibson, while he does have his own, niche carved out in the Commanders' backfield, he's only under contract for 1 more season, and he's a bit more of the pass catcher type anyway. So when we think about taking stabs on running backs, especially guys that have a direct path ahead of them if, injury happens on the depth chart, Chris Rodriguez wouldn't be a very bad 1-for-1 replacement for the type of player that Brian Robinson is if he went down for any reason. And honestly, Rodriguez could have utility as soon as 2023, just based off of that analysis. So definitely consider that fact. Plus, you never know what's going to happen with Gibson. Maybe he doesn't stick around, and Rodriguez immediately finds himself as the RB2 on the Commanders' depth chart as soon as 2024. A name to consider for sure, but let's just give you one more because that's the kind of guy that I am. Lou Nichols III out of Central Michigan. This, I got to say, a couple of years ago in 2021, he led college football in rushing yards with 1,848, had 16 touchdowns, caught 40 passes, went absolutely nuclear playing out there in the MAC conference, but unfortunately, his 2022 didn't go so well. He still had a pretty good year, ran for just over 600 yards, but he didn't quite pop. But he definitely has the size at 5'11", 220 pounds or so, and AJ Dillon's only under contract for one more season. I know if you really dig into the details of Aaron Jones's contract, there is a very feasible financial out after this year. Look, Nichols isn't going to have a ton of utility unless one of Dillon or Jones gets injured at some point this year. It's hard to imagine that the third running back on the Packers yields a lot, but if we're just going to play the long game and bet on a guy that we have seen go absolutely berserk at the college level in the past and does have the prototypical size and pass catching chops that you really look for, there's absolutely no harm in just stashing him on your taxi squad and seeing what happens too. All three of these players have the one thing in common where it's only 1 year away for them to potentially ascend and establish themselves. And look, worst case scenario, you can just cut them and take some chances elsewhere out there on the waiver wire. No harm, no foul. If you have other names of running backs from this 2023 draft class that you think would be excellent dynasty stashes, please let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you. But until next time, I am Herms saying adios and thanks for swimming with us here at Draft Sharks. Adios.